time. Right now, I would like to pass over to Dr. Michael Wessel. He is also representing the Jülich organization here in Germany, and he is responsible and working for the national contact point for digital and industrial technologies. And he is informing us about energy-related projects in Cluster 4 of the Horizon Europe framework. And on the other side, afterwards, he will also give some insights about the mEranet. And this is another format of transnational cooperation and has another strategy and another relation between the partners. So thank you for being also spontaneous, because we start a little bit earlier. And we're looking forward to hearing more details about energy-related projects in Cluster 4.
Thank you very much. So I'm waiting for the slides. Or should I share them myself?
Yes, I think if you upload them.
Okay, so
yes, it's working.
So I just set this into full screen mode, and maybe, oh, sorry, on the other. Can you still see the slide? Yeah, perfect. Okay. So this is full screen. Okay. So I already jumped a bit. Here we are. So thank you very much for having me here and giving me the opportunity to present the basically topics that can be or that are addressed in Cluster 4 for Horizon Europe, and as well to give a brief presentation on the mEranet. So basically, as you can expect, the talk will be divided in two parts. The first one, I will just emphasize on the topics in Cluster 4 of Horizon Europe. And afterwards, I will come to the mEranet. So let's start. And I must thank you, Priska, for setting up basically the framework, because then I just can start here where we can show, or where we can see where the clusters, or where all the green energy topics in Cluster 4 are located. As seen before, we are in the second column of Horizon Europe, and there are different clusters. And so we are with the National Contact Point for Digital and Emerging Technologies, are responsible for basically destination 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. And but only in destination 1, I could find some energy-related topics. You will see they are not all just on pure energy, but also on some nice materials, or at some e-ducts, or some products that are here addressed. So what's basically destination 1 about? Destination 1 is also, as you can see, has a nice headline. It's climate neutral, circular and digitized productions. And as said before by Priska, we have different goals, and these are not just goals that can be found for larger parts of Horizon Europe, meaning for something like the whole column or even whole Horizon Europe, but some of the goals are just set, or they're better said, these goals are specified and emphasized for example, here, destination 1. You see the operation is basically D1, means destination 1. Later in the talk, you will also find TET, which means twin transition. This is basically, if you take a look into the frame in the work program, what you will see. So, but let's dive in. So the goals, basically, it derives already from the title of the destination. You can see here we want to have a global leadership in clean and climate neutral value chains, meaning all of the value chains and all of the industry that we're having in all over the EU. We want to still have it in a few years, of course, and we want to have it green and, of course, without any CO2 emissions. This doesn't mean that this will be in, let's say, 10 years, but the EU is thinking of a longer term, so maybe 2050. Then, of course, coming with that, we have a circular economy, meaning all the materials that act as e-ducts and later might come as waste should become the e-duct again. They're basically going from the linear to a real circular economy. Also, we have a lot of manufacturing processes that are already existing, but so far they are not well digitalized. So one of the goals here is also to introduce digitalization, meaning basically you can have inline analysis of your materials or your production, and even steer the process or enhance the process by a kind of inline monitoring and steering. Then, of course, the decarbonization of all important industry sectors. You know that a lot of industry here, for example, steel milling, which is done in Europe, is still having a huge climate footprint. We try to decarbonize this in different ways and fashions that will be shown or addressed in the topics that I want to present. Then, of course, again, the climate neutrality for the industry, and there is a set date, 2050. If it would be before, it would be great, but it will still be a huge effort to reach that. An important thing here with all these topics that I want to present is basically that from Destination 1, almost all of the topics are co-created with 3 partnerships. These partnerships are made in Europe, which will not be addressed in this talk. Then Process for Planet, which basically will be having most of the topics here, and Clean Steel, which also plays a role. Okay, just to show a little bit on the conditions, if you take a look in the work program, you will find a call that is called Twin Green and Digital Transitions, and important, of course, it's for 2024. As you can see from the dates, the topics are already open, meaning you already can hand in any proposal, and you have to do that until the 7th of February next year. It's still about 2 months time. Of course, there's Christmas and the Christmas break, which makes it a little bit harder, but it's still doable. And you can see basically that even within 2 months time, of course, it's hard to get something from scratch. But sometimes if you might be the best partner, that might come in handy for some almost established consortium, this is still possible to go for this money. And if you take a look in the funding tender support, for example, and the partner search facility, there is a good opportunity to find someone. Or, of course, events like this, partnering events, brokerage events, these are basically the best ideas if you have 2 months left and want to be part of basically the European family. In total, you will see that we have 7 topics that address energy or green energy topic or green energy, and this will have, or they will have a total budget of 180 million euros. You also can see that the total budget for Destination 1 is a little bit higher, so 100 or approximately 100 million are not on green energy, but on other things like digitalization of pure manufacturing processes and so on. As one could guess, basically from the different partnerships that are found in Destination 1, you can see that there is a subject section needed to make it a little bit more easy to find the right things here. So we have 3 sections, which is basically manufacturing industry in 1.1, energy intensive process industries 1.2, and a new way to build in 1.3. And for this talk, I am only concentrate for 1.2. Basically, this is a process industry, which is really heavily reliant on energy, of course. So I want to start the topics with the overview. You can see there are 7 topics, and basically they always follow the same pattern. So on the left, you have an identifier, meaning TT, which is also could be called Destination 1, but you will find twin transition in the work program. So you see basically there are 7 of them, starting from 0132 to 0146. And then you see basically a topic, which is basically a description what should be done. Well, it's a very short description, of course. Then the next you will see basically if the topic is coming from a partnership, then there's this type, as said before, there are different types of projects that are addressed, meaning innovation action is an IEA, RIA, so RIA is a research and innovation action. And then you find the budget, which can differ really in a large amount, meaning and the total budget for one of topic might be in between 10 to 40 million euros. But as you can see next, it will not only be one project. So the EU Commission, in cooperation with experts, estimates how many projects might be needed and basically how much the topic should be. So the first one, it's basically TT32, and you can see there's always a nice box on top, which basically gives short information, meaning which TRL is addressed, how much the topic budget in total is, how much budget will be there addressed or could be used for any given proposal, and of course the deadline. The deadline, just to mention this once more, is all the same for all of these topics that I present here, and they will all be stage 1 proposals, meaning you have to write a full proposal. So the first one is basically optimization of thermal energy flows in the process industries. As we all know, basically to produce anything in the process industry, you need a lot of money most of the times. Even in former days, people try to make it more efficient. But the EU Commission and its experts found that there are some points that could be basically helped to increase or to be made better. And then they come up to things like basically to outcomes like these. So basically here you should increase the energy efficiency through the optimization of thermal energy flows between processes, meaning heat that you generate should be used before, so in your process, for example. Also, you could minimize these, meaning better isolation and so on. Then you should show that basically this is or a highly process integrated solution, meaning this is no blue sky research. You will have to do something in an almost real life environment. You can see the TRL, the technology readiness level, goes up to 7, meaning you have a demonstrator on a pre-industrial scale. So it's really not something that you go into in a lab, but that you can do in basically in the demonstrator in industry at the end. Then you should also show that basically you increase the flexibility of the process, meaning that even if you change things like the energy type, or sometimes also basically let's say the energy type only, then that basically even if the energy that you can supply or the amount of energy changes, that the process doesn't break down, for example. Then, of course, this basically should help to achieve the EU climate neutrality goal, meaning the less energy you use, the less CO2 you emit. And if you change, for example, or if you increase the energy efficiency, then you become less independent or less dependent from fossil fuels and fuel imports. Meaning, if you could do something, for example, hydrogen would be nice, but here this is just for the energy efficiency. Of course, if you use less energy, this means also less cost, and this makes, of course, the European industry more competitive and resilient. So the next one you see, basically, it's kind of not similar, but close by to the topic before. So now you have number TT0134. This is a little bit lower in TRL, it's a little bit less money. And this is about renewable hydrogen as feedstock for innovative production routes, meaning before you had a topic which covers the energy efficiency, but here now you have a different feedstock. So basically, you should show, and here are just the outcomes shown, not the scope, which you should also address. You can take a look at that in the work package. In the work program. And here the outcomes, for example, is that you really can show that you have a feasible and a technical and economical feasible and innovative production route that uses hydrogen. Of course, it's not specified which kind of hydrogen you use, but you should be aware that basically the best would be to use green hydrogen, of course. Then it's not just that you basically have a new production route that is used and using hydrogen, but also that is a suitable scale, meaning it's not just a lab, but still going to a kind of demonstrator. Even if you just go 6, this means not a demonstrator in environment, industrial environment, but close by at least. Basically, you should also show that you have an efficient use and integration of hydrogen as a feedstock, meaning it's not just something like use a little bit of hydrogen, but the best would be to just use hydrogen as the feedstock. And of course, if you have something like the generation of hydrogen on site, it would be wise to utilize renewable energy so that we really would have green hydrogen and would come basically to a kind of climate friendly or climate neutral hydrogen here and go basically for a real green thing. So TT0135 is going to the other part of basically production, meaning before we had how to decrease.
Yes? Excuse me, Mr. Wessel, I can't at the moment. I don't know.
You can't hear me?
Now it's possible again. Okay.
I didn't change anything. So.
No. Okay, so it was working, and,
okay.
and from the point that you switched the slide, so we just didn't, or I didn't hear the first words of the actual slide.
Okay, maybe we had slightly. Okay, but that's good to know. So, okay, I'll do it again. So basically now we have TT0135, which is going basically to the other part of the production process. Before we had basically the input and using less energy. Now we have CO2, which is basically a thing that comes out of a lot of still industry processes nowadays. And industry can use this as a feedstock, as a building block in chemical industry, for example, and this is addressed here by this topic. Basically, the idea is really to master the capture and purification and conversion of CO or CO2 from process industry, and that you basically can use this, do this by using renewable energies, meaning instead of you relying on the electricity mix, for example, that we have in Germany, which is not that green, would be a better idea because you would still emit more CO2. But if you have, for example, your capture facility on site and you would do this by wind or solar energy, this is a thing that would be addressed in here. Then, of course, it's not just the planning that you have, but as a second bullet point, you should showcase basically that your idea, meaning the system, is really effective, so that from the process that you have, basically the CO2 emissions are going towards zero. They don't have to be zero because it's just CO2 avoidance. But the best idea would be to reach zero here. Then you should, of course, show that basically you can scale it up, and that this is not just a kind of academic exercise, and which is still a huge point, that it's cost efficient. Because nowadays to capture 1 ton of CO2 is quite expensive, but the idea is basically to come up with new ideas here that decrease the cost and make it suitable on a really industrial scale. So basically, this is also the third point here, because we have an economic viability, meaning you have to compete with existing state of the art, or of course, have a lower price, which is basically the long-term goal here. Then to make it really green and to try to avoid as much CO2 as possible, even from the process itself, is basically that you try to integrate and use renewable energy sources. Meaning it could be biomass, it could be energy, basically solar energy, wind energy. The choice is up to you. And this, of course, will increase the competitiveness and resilience of your industry, again, because at some point there might be coming for something like other states already have a CO2, let's say a CO2 tax. And still nowadays, of course, you have to pay for it every ton of CO2 emitted. So this will also be higher in the future. And if you don't emit CO2, this is basically a good thing in terms of competitiveness, of course. So now I'm waiting a second so that hopefully there's no delay. So the next topic would be TT0138. Basically, it's the hub for circularities for industrial, urban, peripheral areas. This is basically a kind of synergy between industry and, of course, the urban area, meaning living quarters close by. You see that is also a kind of higher TRL, and has a nice large budget, because this is supposed to be a huge project, as you don't have just to integrate industry, but also the community for city, for example, themselves. So the idea is basically that you use that you use urban waste on a commercial scale, meaning, for example, to burn it and to use the energy, or to get some nice materials from that and use it as a feedstock. Also, if you have large process industry, that you basically could try to reduce or that you should reduce the use of fresh water, meaning you could basically use the water that has been used before by the urban part. Of course, once you use less resources and emit less CO2 or other things, you will also have a more healthy environment, because you will decrease the emissions. And also, if you have this and basically are successful, this is basically a kind of cross-sectorial cooperation. And this is basically what is addressed in this EU Green Deal and the Fit for 55 package. So basically, these hubs here that could be established at the basically border of process industry, meaning industry, and the urban parts of areas should not be used on this side, but should be a kind of plan for other sites as well. So the next topic is TTO 141, and this is breakthrough to improve process industry and resource efficiency. So the idea is basically to have, again, a higher efficiency compared to the state of the art. And here, this topic's really free, basically, in terms of how you want to do that. The only things that are excluded is basically just to go for water or energy themselves. So meaning you install something and use less water, for example. But if you have a new, let's say, a new kind of process route, or that you expect to have at least 30% less energy consumption, for example, this is the topic to go for. This is basically open to all kinds of technologies, but you should show that basically that it's feasible. So basically, you have a novel technology or process. You demonstrate this here, and of course, you will still go just to TRL6. You go to kind of suitable scale, showing that the scale up to the industrial size is also viable. Of course, since you would be emitting, or since you would be using about or at least 30% less of energy or water, so you of course would reduce the CO2 footprint, which would also contribute to the neutrality goals of the EU. Again, this would help with increasing the competitiveness and resilience of the European process industry. So topic TT 1044 is again now a little bit higher TRL. You see ETRL 7 here, but it's kind of smaller. You see I think it's the smallest ones that we have from B7. It's in total 10 million only, and it's expected to have 3 to 5 million as a budget topic, basically a budget per topic. And this is on the digital transformation, ensuring a better use of industrial data, so to optimize steel supply chains. Before, we had all these topics coming from Processes for Planet, the partnership. Now we are in we have arrived at clean steel, meaning this only basically applies for steel producers. So the outcomes here would be basically to digitalize all your processes. The idea is if you have a kind, for example, inline or real-time tools to monitor your control, you can, of course, change the running conditions, and of course, always be in the most optimal process window. This, of course, would lead to using less energy. For example, if you're using electricity, or even using less CO2, depending on how your route is for steel milling. So the idea, again, is to enhance the inline classification of feedstock, meaning you, at almost every point of the process, of the steel milling process, you should know what you're dealing with, so that basically you have a good overview of the whole picture, which not just helps in one batch, but using the data that you gather here, that you can use and do some machine learning, for example, and find out how the process could be made better or could be improved in total. of course, this also addresses the problem of data sharing. This should be effective and secure. As we are dealing with industry data, this should be basically for everybody. The idea that's also here touched is basically that you have a traceability of material process. The information is given at any point at the value chain, meaning that you exactly know when you know the batch number of your steel milling, and you would know what's inside, which is also good for the consumer. So for the last topic on the cluster 4, basically this is TT0146. It's again a steel topic. And here the idea is going two ways. Either you should have a CO2 neutral steel production with hydrogen or secondary carbon carriers and electricity, or, and here you have to choose between the first or second, or innovative steel applications for low CO2 emissions. So the idea is basically to have a clean steel market, meaning in best case, you wouldn't emit any CO2. It's really a little bit problematic, of course, or it's hard to come by. But here are some ideas how the Commission thinks it could be done. So basically, you should, of course, use advanced and breakthrough technologies. And if you go for the first part of the topic, then you should use some. You could come up with interesting routes for hydrogen, secondary carbon carriers, or electricity. Some of them are, of course, already in research or even in smaller plants, but to scale it up to a higher level and to the large scale contributions. And the second part would be basically to come up with innovative steel applications for CO2, low CO2 emissions, meaning specialized steels, for example, if you have a car that you could change the composition or of the steel or the structure of the steel, that you would use less CO2, less steel, meaning of course less CO2. So now we'll come briefly to the second part of the talk, so the mRNet. And the mRNet has been established basically more than 10 years ago. You can see here in this timeline, right now we are in mRNet 3. This will run up to 2026. And you also can see that there is a kind of evolution over the years. At first, the mRNet started not really kind of small, but it's compared to now, it's much smaller. So it was just 37 national or regional funding organizations, and there were 4 calls. And now we have close to 50 funding organizations from 35 countries. Basically, this is the largest mRNet co-fund consortium that you find. There are others, for ARMIN, for example, and so on. But this one is really large. So it has been said before, how about people coming from other parts of the world that are not Europe? The mRNet is a good example how to bring the most excellent researchers from different kind of regions or states together. Here is basically on the left, you find the hard figures, where on the right, you see a nice colored map, which shows which countries or regions from countries are active. You see most of the EU is active, either as the state or as a region. But there are other regions, for example, Brazil or parts of Canada, I think it's Quebec, that are here active, as well as South Africa, Israel, Taiwan, South Korea, and so on. So this is really a kind of nice international cooperation. And the idea is basically on mRNet that you want to help people in materials research. And for that, basically, you want to create nice synergies between kind of national funding programs and the, let's say, worldwide. Before it was kind of Europe-wide, but now it's worldwide funding, or let's say research. So basically, the topics that are addressed are all from the Sustainable Development Goals. You can see basically Sustainable Development Goal 7, affordable and clean energy, and number 9, the industry, innovation, and infrastructure. And the mRNet consortium is always in a kind of a dialogue with the international and European R&D community. One of the main points also nowadays is basically to raise awareness for the research and responsible research and innovation. So in total, there have been 11 calls so far. You can see basically the funding volume is more than 310 million euros. The European Commission had only few calls where they participated. So these were kind of top-up funds. And so they gave 20 million approximately. So far, more than 2,000 proposals have been submitted and 381 projects have been funded. You can see that basically if you compare the funding volume into projects, that the volumes are not as large as the ones that you can expect in cluster 4 of Horizon Europe, but still is approximately 1 million nowadays per project. The success rate is similar basically to the one in cluster 4 of Horizon Europe, which is also around 16%. So since the numbers changed over time, I wanted to show this way as well and show that basically participating in mRNet is nowadays a really nice thing. You see in the third iteration of mRNet, in the first one, so 21 was the co-funded call, the same as 2016. This is why they were higher. But still, you can see for the last call that has been published and also evaluated, this was 22. There were more than 40 million euros that have been distributed to a lot of, I think it's close to 40 consortia. The next, so 2023 has already had its deadline and it's the latest part of evaluation. So basically, the most interesting thing for your applicants will be this here, because this shows which topics are given here in the mRNet. So these are the ones from last year, and I must say they might change every year, but they're at least close by. So over the last few years, these have been topics that were addressed. Sometimes they change. One is exchanged, for example, one falls off or one is added. So please be careful as there is not yet a call published for the next year. We expect there will be one, and I will later in the slides I will have also the information data where you can find that. So you have, for example, the first one is sustainable advanced materials for energy, which is really fitting here to basically this event. But also the other ones are also fitting, as they most of the times also are dealing with energy or even battery issues. So the second one would be innovative surfaces, coatings, interfaces. This is also applicable for all kinds of energy-related research. Then you have high-performance composites, functional materials, advanced materials and technologies for health applications, next-generation materials for electronics. And please keep in mind, there sometimes it depends on, of course, in which state you are located in or which region even. Not all of these might be applicable. And also there might be a larger theme, like a kind of cross-cutting theme. For example, in Germany, on the federal level, it was batteries. So you could combine any one of these with batteries. For the call of 2024, the topics are not yet given. But if you take a look at the older calls from mRNet, you might find some ideas. So if you want to go for mRNet, as seen by the budget that you can get, of course, the consortia are a little bit smaller. Usually it's 3 to 7 partners, and you have to have at least 3 partners from 3 different countries, whereby 2 should be members of the EU or associated states. And it's not that it's kind of national funding, so basically that not one single party can have more than 60% of the total project efforts, meaning person month, or one country more than 70. And there are some pre-proposal forms that have to be given. So if you're looking for some information on the mRNet, you can find them here. Basically on the left, you see the mRNet webpage. And also there is the link given, or the URL is given to the mRNet page. You find all the most recent information. You see latest news. There are also other things covered, not just mRNet. If you have any questions, you always can write to the office at mHeurope.net, or you could follow Twitter. Basically, all the information which is new or which is added to the website is published there as well. One of the nice things is there is a partner search facility for mRNet, which is quite active. And if you register there, you will also be, better said, your offer that you might give or your search that you give will be published on Twitter as well. So, and with that, I basically come to the contact details. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. You can find my contact data on the left. And I also wanted to provide a few links that might be helpful. At first, this is basically the national contact point for digital and industrial technologies. This would be the first point on the right. But also, if you're not from Germany, there's a nice consortium, the NCP for Industry, which is with a combination of 17 NCP organizations all over Europe and abroad. So we help, we try to help in basically all the topics or on the questions on topics of cluster 4, meaning just with small questions like, is this idea really fitting, up to, could you please kind of take a look if this proposal is in scope or might be even well written, could you give, basically we do kind of pre-screenings here, for example. And also inform on new events that come for cluster 4. And as last, mAreanet, basically here again, there's the URL to the mAreanet. If you're interested in this kind of open topic, or if you're in this open scheme, then please go there. I will estimate somewhere in early spring, there might be information given on the next call, but I cannot promise anything here. So thank you, and if there are questions, please feel free.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Wessel, for this presentation and also for the details, because I think what you showed us and what now is very clear is the large variety of actual calls and the large varieties to manage and to focus on green energy transitions, or the research for that transitions, to be more precise. Well, I would like to start with some questions. Maybe you already mentioned it in your presentation, but or in the second mArea presentation, you had a hint about the ratio applications and funding results and projects. Could you also inform us about the ratio for the Horizon and Horizon Europe projects focusing on energy?
Yeah, of course. So for cluster 4 in the call from 22, basically the success rate was 15 point something. So it was really close to this mAreanet success rate. Of course, this gives a kind of average. There are some topics which are really kind of, let's say they have a huge oversubscription and some have a huge undersubscription. It meets at 15%. If you're lucky, you're in one of these topics where you have a success rate of 30%, even 40%. The lowest we had was a little bit less than 10%. This was a really open topic. And of course, if the more open it is, the more people can apply, because you're not basically limited to kind of research that you might not do. So yeah, in total, in average, it was 15%, but it differs basically by a huge spread.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that. So I have some more questions. In the beginning of your first presentation, you mentioned also the timeline or the deadline for upcoming calls, and you mentioned the complexity of proposals and the writing process, and that it's still sometimes possible to jump in spontaneous for consortium where there is only like a missing partner. But do you have or could you tell us about your experience, how long it takes for a company, for example, to prepare a proposal, even if it's like if they are a newcomer or that they never had large experiences? And yes, could you give us some experience?
So basically, let's start with the more experienced ones. If you're really experienced, and basically this is exactly your field of research, and you have already asked your friends if they want to participate, meaning the people that you've been working all your life, then you have a kind of core consortium of, let's say, 4, 5, 6 interested parties. Then you're just looking for some other parties as well that might fill in basically in the blank spaces. If you've already written a proposal and you know how to do it, and especially if you were successful, then you have a good idea what to do. Then I would say 2 to 3 months is doable. If you're inexperienced, and now we must distinguish between two cases. Let's say at first you're just someone who's not coordinating. Then it's still quite easy, because at some point a coordinator might contact you, or you might contact a coordinator. This can also be done with basically 1 month if you're lucky. So because your part will not be that huge. On the other hand, if you want to coordinate something and you haven't done anything like that, maybe, for example, in ARANET, you did this and you have already a nice idea of a small consortium, then it's a good idea. If you don't have things like that, it's getting real hard. I would guess as soon as basically the working program is published, you should start drafting, because it will take a long time. And it's so basically we NCPs, we are there as kind of a help, or as helpers for writing proposals. We don't write them as some consultants might do, but as said before, we help in reading and seeing if basically your ideas are in line with the topic text, and maybe if something's missing. So we start helping from the scratch, meaning you have an idea on 1 page, you send it into an NCP, and the NCP could say, yeah, this works, or yeah, it might fit with some alterations, for example. If you have help like that, I would guess half a year would be okay. But if you're really unexperienced, half a year also might be okay, but then you must be really lucky. The idea, basically the best idea that you can have, is if you go for the first time for European funding, try to find a good consortium where you can learn, because learning from the experienced members of your consortium really gives you an idea on how to write a proposal, and what basically how a project should look like, and what you have to do. Another really excellent idea is basically to register as an expert. The EU is always looking for experts, meaning reviewers for all of these two clusters, not just cluster 4, but all over Horizon Europe. So, and if you're coming from industry, especially from industry, they're always looking. It's like you state what your expertise is, and basically if you're going for some projects yourself and so on, then you might be lucky and get elected as an evaluator. And these evaluators get the best insight that you can get. Basically, you get a really good grasp on how the evaluation is done, meaning also how a proposal should be written. And this is a really good starting point, especially for people that haven't had contact with Horizon Europe so far. So, but I would say for the inexperienced ones, without help, half a year. If you're really experienced, you can make it in 2 to 3 months.
All right. Okay. No, but I think this is a framework of time and time investment that is not always clear to the companies that do it on top to their, or probably most often if they are SMEs. Okay. So finally, to my last question, what is your experience about the submission date of a Horizon call and the start of a project?
There are basically strict rules that the Commission imposed on itself. There are basically 2 dates. So after 5 months after the deadline, basically it should the applicants should all be informed. This is basically the latest date that the Commission set itself. And to my knowledge, basically every time this time is reached. And then 3 months later, so meaning 8 months after the proposed deadline, or after the deadline, there is the time to grant idea. Meaning, let's say our deadline is early in February, meaning 8 months on top. Meaning let's say if you want to start in August, this is far too early. If you go to October, that's the perfect idea. So just to be sure, say 8 months after, and then it's fine. And to my knowledge, all of the Commission really basically keeps its promise with these times.
All right. Okay. So thank you very much. Since we still have some time, the question is to the other audience here, if there are other questions. Yeah, Ms. Sonntag. Okay. You just switch on the. All right. Okay. So.
Sorry, I just wanted to give the opportunity to ask also questions for
Yes,
energy.
of course. Yeah, I'm sorry for that.
No problem.
Yeah, of course. Maybe also about experiences to share. All right. Okay.
Yes, perhaps I would like to say something about the success rate again. As my colleague Michael just said, don't look so deeply into success rates. If you want to apply, just try to be the best. And then everything will work out, because the success rates don't really say anything. For example, in live clean energy transition, we had a topic with 6 applicants and 6 were taken. So six were funded. So that is a success rate of 100. And in the same call, we had a topic with 3 applicants and none was taken. So that is a success rate from 0. So, and in life, the success rate overall is 40%. It doesn't say anything. Just try to be one of the best, and this and call, of course. Take the help you can get from national contact points, from the EEN network, or whoever is possible. That's my advice.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Sonntag, because I think this was a very important yeah, a very important advice, really. Yeah. If there are no other questions for the moment, I would like to I would like to thank you, Dr. Wessels and Dr. Ms. Sonntag, for your presentations and for the detailed information.